going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. It is such a wonderful, wonderful day and such great pleasure I have to be able to introduce our next guest. So I met her through the Cozy Book Nook community run by Christina and Laban. And our guest here, she has been so gracious and so supportive and just a wonderful person, not only to myself, but to the community as a whole. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest is well decorated in awards and achievements, all in the times of her publishing her books. She has, to this date, as of June 2025, has 61 books to her name. 61 books is wild, but 61 books with her latest release, Horse in Space. Okay,
Yes,
I got it right.
Horse in Space.
Yes, Horse in Space being the number one top new release books on Amazon as of June 10th, 2025, which is the day that her book launched. So that should tell you something about how decorated and how skillful she is at that. So, hey, without further ado, I present to you the wonderful Mrs. Mary L. Schmidt. What's going on with you today?
Well, hi. Thanks for the warm welcome. What's
Of
going
course.
on today? Well, let's see. I just did a podcast and now I'm here. It's been
Yes.
a busy day. It's been busy. At 4 o'clock this morning, I saw that my new release hit number one in
Hmm.
pigs, children's books for pigs
Hmm.
books for children, and then children's and adventures and all kinds of. Anyway, there's two different categories it's been in, and my husband was still awake, so I was able to tell him, and it's just been kind of exciting the rest of the day.
Yeah. That's so
It's amazing. It's amazing because for me, this is three books, three children's picture books in a row that have landed the number one hot new release in a row. And that's not something that's easy to do. And I
Mm.
still can't believe I did it, but Jesus must have had something to do with it. So,
Oh, of course. And I failed to mention that you are also a best-selling author. I think that's important to distinguish as well. Just along with the accolades that you have. To me, the accolades they're cool. They're like a good little selling point for people to know that, oh, this person, they have reached such heights in their career. But everyone starts somewhere, and even if they may never win an award, that's still okay. But it does help with the credibility of the individual, such as yourself, in being able to have produced over 60 books. That it is not 60 books of just one genre. These are multiple genres that we're talking about, and so there's so many questions I could ask you. But the first big one I gotta ask right out the gate is, how have you been so consistent, right, and having your books um, launch and be in a top spot, specifically in new releases?
well, I my books I publish under M. Schmidt Productions, which is my own publishing company. That said, that M. Schmidt Productions is a rainbow term for I only publish my own books.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't publish anyone else's. I will help others publish, but I won't. I don't do that. Um, but I also have a lot of things that I do offer. So under M. Schmidt Productions, so there is that to it. So saying that, I go through Ingram Spark.
Hmm.
Okay, Ingram Spark is huge because you're not going through. If you're going through Amazon, that's it. That's all you get. It's Amazon. You go through Ingram Spark, and then you do everything the right way, and you use every kind of keyword or key phrases, anything that's going on in your book. There's lots of room to add all of that, so that all that metadata comes into play to hit that number one spot. And then I also go and try to pick categories that are relevant to the book, but also um, get them as narrowed down as possible. And so when you have a pig and outer space and that kind of thing going on, and you can pick those categories, it's going to help. And you get all your keywords right. That's what does it.
Yeah.
But it's taken me, I mean, this is like 11 years now since I've started writing. And anyways, I found all the things that I don't want to do and would never do and not recommend, and I found things that I would do. So those are the things that I do, is I make sure that I have all the categories really geared to what the book is, who it's, what it's about, what to be expected, and every keyword or key phrase I can think of.
Now, where
Because,
do you? Oh, sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. But so some there's such a variety of tools out there that people use. People specifically, meaning like authors or even indie publishers, use in order to better assess or to better their chances at the keywords that they use to land them more visibility. Now, for you, do you just do your own research, or do you use platforms like I don't know, like Publisher Rocket as an example, or is it just extensive research that you do on your own that helps you find keywords that actually helps elevate your visibility?
None of those.
Oh wow.
What I do is I look at the synopsis of my book and I look at the different paragraphs. If it's a children's book, it's going to be like, 4 lines to a page. And I'll take all my keywords exactly out of the synopsis, and I'll take key
Mhm.
phrases out of that too. That's
That's
all I
impressive.
need.
Yeah, and it's helped. Yeah, you've been
If you have a good synopsis
yeah.
and you have it focused on what it does, what it's about, and how it will help children, and how it will social issues, whatever's going on, the different things that it will help with. If all of that is in your synopsis, then you've got all your keywords and key phrases right there.
Perfect.
You don't have to go hunt them up. You got them.
And I love that approach too because there's so much, and this is not something that I condone, but to each their own, where you have to spend an excess amount of money to garner in so much that you may not get back in return. And sometimes it takes experience, such as experience as you've learned, to know, hey, this is what works for me. This may not work for you, but it works for me. And in essence, you may actually end up saving more money in the back end and not flushing out so much. Now, for you, your audience that you have is it definitely appears to be organically grown, and to include reviews. Now, you're no stranger in this whole publishing business when it comes to reviews or how people get the reviews. But for you, how are you able to obtain your reviews?
Well, most of the time, if I read somebody's book, sooner or later they take one of mine and they read it.
Yeah.
It's organic. It's organic. But I did decide I was going to try this book tasters thing.
Hmm.
And for my book, Her Alibi, which is a very interesting book, I'll tell you that right now. And so I'm just, I just gave them the information. The readers can look at it. If they decide they want to read it and review it, then I'll
Hmm.
send them a PDF. And then they'll do that. And this is the first time I've tried it. I started it last month, so I
Hmm.
have until whatever day this month where it does its 30-day thing. So that's happening, but that's going with Her Alibi because I wanted to actually see what other people were thinking about my mother psychologically
Hmm.
in that book. I will tell you that the book is basically about 80 pages. It's not very long, but it's packed full of a lot. Essentially, my mother shot my stepdad.
Hmm.
And but before that, she was untreated. Well, she was untreated for 82 years. She, in hindsight, it's really easy. I've got a nursing degree, and I worked as a nurse for a long time. And it was when I was taking all these psychological courses and other things that I realized, oh, she has this, oh, she has that too. Oh my, she
Mm-hmm.
has that too. And she's got this God thing going on. And it's like, for 82 years, she lived with untreated mental illness, which is
Mm-hmm.
terrible
Yeah.
because it not only affected her marriages, especially my stepdad, who she married 3 times for various reasons, most of them monetary. But, anyways, it's just, it makes you wonder. She ended up alienating every single one of her children by the time she died.
Dang. That's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
but she shot my stepdad in his stomach, and he didn't die from that. They did do surgery. She came over, she used me as her alibi. She did that. She came over to my place. It was a cold winter night in 1982, and she came over to my place where she had never come before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm the black sheep of the family, so whenever she came around, it was because she had a reason. So she wants to talk, and it's like, okay, and it's lit at night, and it's cold, and it's like, okay, fine, have a seat. And we start talking, and all of a sudden, she comes up with, "Do you think Harold would ever shoot himself?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Well, do you ever think he would ever commit suicide?" And I said, "Well, no, he wouldn't. But if he was, he would know how to do it, because he had been in the Navy." And he'd
Mm-hmm.
been in the military in Korea because he had helped out with the local police force. And for various other reasons, he knew, like most people know, if they're really serious about killing themselves and they're really serious about committing suicide, they're going to shoot themselves in the head. They
Right.
know that. You're not going to shoot in the lower abdomen. You're not going to do that
Right.
and just stay in a vehicle out in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to do that. No. For that to happen, it's going to be somebody else shot you, and that same person hid the gun for 2 weeks before she let the police have it.
Uh.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's just things like that, and it's just there are a lot of psychological things that people need to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story that people need to be aware of how much psychological illness there is in the world
Right.
and the different kinds, and to be able to recognize it.
Oh yeah.
For my stepdad, I did wait 12 years after she passed away before I wrote the book, but then I wrote it, and I don't know how Christian you are, but I am very Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a couple of weeks after it came out, which it came out at #1, hot in the release. I mean, it was hot for several days. That I spend time talking with Jesus every morning, and so I'll put like a hood over myself, and I'll be in my recliner, and I'll just be concentrating and just focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt something touch my foot, and I thought, okay, that must be my husband letting me know he's headed off somewhere. And then they did, but then I said, no, he knows better than that. He knows not to bother me or say anything when I'm under this hood. He knows not to bother me. Okay? Then it happened again. I thought, no, that's not Mike. What's going on? So I took it off, and I saw no one. I saw nothing.
Mm.
But I had a big sense of my stepdad telling me, letting me know that he was thankful that his story was finally out.
Yeah.
And then it was gone. I did not feel like there was a presence there, but I had this big sense of that came into me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I never saw anything. So then, about 3 weeks later, at Thanksgiving, my middle stepbrother, I was with him, and I asked him if he'd had a copy of the book, and I didn't know how he was taking it because my stepdad left 3 sons.
Yeah.
And so they've waited 40 years for something to help give closure to what happened.
I
And
see.
the younger one bought the book. The oldest one didn't have it, and the middle one, Scott, didn't have it. And I said, "Well, I'm going to give you books." And I said, "I'm going to give you one. You can give one to your mom too." And I told him what happened that morning. I told him, and Scott grabbed me in the biggest, most huge bear hug ever,
Hmm.
and wouldn't let go. And that told me this is how bad they needed to have some closure on their father's death.
Yeah.
You know? Yes, my mother did it, and yes, she used me, spent time at my place for hours into the middle of the night so that she could say that, yeah, this is where she was when he was shot.
Yeah.
Yes, he was shot. Yes, she found him. He was still alive. Yes, he went and he had surgery. It was repaired. All of his abdominal stuff was repaired.
Hmm.
But she was also wouldn't let anybody go in his hospital room. She had to be there all the time.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Interesting.
And then he started getting depressed in the hospital.
Hmm.
And he knew that he was supposed to cough and things because he needed to not get pneumonia, and he didn't want to. And then he finally decided, okay, so maybe I should cough. He started coughing, and then that just split open his abdominal wound all over again. So he had to go back into surgery and
Hmm.
have it fixed, and then taken back to his other room, back up to his room, same room. But pneumonia then settled in. So pneumonia killed him.
That's so unfortunate. That's so unfortunate. But it seems like with you, you have turned that into some form. Like writing that memoir, I would imagine was some sigh of relief for you. Was it not therapeutic, or did it feel therapeutic in a way?
Yes, it did. It
That's
did
good.
because I was able to. I could have written a much larger book, but there was no need for that. I wanted to just have certain instances be written about so that you can look at something and you can see this is not what a real mother does. Growing up, we thought all mothers were like this. We didn't know
Right.
when we were kids. We thought they were all like this. And in order to know what that is, you'd have to read the book. But I don't know. It's not all mothers are that way.
For sure.
I can tell you that for sure. My mother never, she did not give out hugs or kisses or anything like that. And when my children were born, I lavished all of that on them
Hmm.
because I raised them different.
Yeah. Good for you.
I
Broke
did.
the cycle. You broke the cycle.
I was not about to do anything like she did. But then I also don't have what she had psychologically, her illnesses either. So she had schizophrenia for sure, and some other things that happened. So
Yeah. I see
it's
now.
untreated. Anyways, but that said, that was not my first book either. I wrote that book in 2020? No, 2022.
Hmm.
I'll get it right. I've got a lot of books to think about.
Yeah. Over 60. Yeah.
61, yeah. I have. You cannot find all of my books on Amazon under one specific name because I have them either they're under Marielle Schmidt or Mary Schmidt or S. Jackson. Some have A. Raymond. I started with using a pen name, a pseudonym, because I didn't want any lawsuits. I wrote a very big book. My first one, my book baby, was about my youngest son and how he ended up getting pharyngeal nasopharyngeal cancer. And by the time it was known exactly what he had, it had already spread to both lungs.
Wow.
And he died 7.5 months later. And so I couldn't, there's a lot of stuff in that book that helps parents to know actually how they can help their child in a hospital, especially in a large medical center. And my
Hmm.
son was at NKU Med in Kansas City. And you have to be there. You have to advocate for your child, but you
Yeah,
also cannot upset and alienate the staff or they won't want to take care of your child. There's
exactly.
a fine line there.
Hmm.
If your child is having a lot of pain and they don't bring in pain medicine in 30 minutes time, then, take them to task and say he needs them now. If it's an antibiotic and they're an hour late, so be it. They hang it an hour late. That doesn't matter because you don't know what's been going on the unit, what's been happening with the other kids. You don't know what's happened. So you have to pick your battles.
Yeah, for sure.
And so pain is a biggest issue. And that's the one that if we don't get something within 30 minutes, then you need to go and get some help for your
Agree.
child. And that's what the book teaches is to help parents be an advocate and to choose their battles, pick the right battles, and to
Yeah.
research what's going on with their child, especially if it's something long term. I can tell you that my son, he is 4 years old, and we didn't know it, found out in the fall, but he had picked up Epstein-Barr virus. Now, what 4-year-old is going to get Epstein-Barr virus? It's going to be one that's been on a lot of antibiotics because of multiple sinus infections. Epstein-Barr virus, that is the same thing as the kissing disease or mononucleosis. That's what it
Yeah.
is. But here's the trigger, and it is a trigger. Yeah, I knew he had it, and the doctors knew he had it, or that he was recovering. But what I didn't know was that it can oftentimes cause nasopharyngeal cancer. And it did in my
Mm.
son. So he was 5 years old when he died.
Yeah,
My
that's
youngest.
scary.
So it's important. I have things in it. I've toned down the medical speak, so it's not medical speak so much because I wanted to be able to explain so other parents could understand things. So if something came up with their child, they could understand what I was talking about, whether it was a test or a lab type of
Mhm.
result and what they're looking for. But it's to help other parents. And so When Angels Fly, that's my first book. That's my book, baby. That is Sam, even though in the book he's Eli, and that's Sam.
And
That's my first book, and that came out in 2015.
2015, you've been on fire ever since, and like
And
just
10 years,
uh
61 books.
yeah, 60 was just certainly the bug bit you. You got that writer's book, but deep down inside to be able to produce such an immense catalog, immense quantity of a catalog, it says a lot about you as a storyteller and the idea that these ideas don't quite ever shut off. But so with your children's stories, right, with the artistry that goes into it, what is your process when it comes to creating illustrations? How do you go about that?
That's pretty easy. Um, First, I know what my story is going to be about for the kids' books, and I draw inspiration from the wild squirrels in the backyard. We have a lot of
Yeah.
wild squirrels, but we put out walnuts and stuff for them to eat every day. They're, and I can look and see them right outside the window. And they come up and do a little begging, for more walnuts and that kind of thing. And they're just interesting. And so I draw a lot of inspiration from them. I have actually a squirrel series, a book series with a squirrel and a small dog and how they became friends, and it's a 12 book series.
Yeah.
So that happened because of our daughter's her dog Shadow.
Hmm.
So included, but anyways, so for making the designs, that's once I have the what I'm going to have on that page written. I know it's going to be written, and I have it all plotted out, and it's all set up. then I can do the illustrations, and that goes pretty quick. Really, for me, it goes pretty quick. But Shadow, I have a book out called Shadow,
Mhm.
actually, one that came out this year. Shadow is a book for children, but it's also a book for an adults. I've There's an adult who bought it because they were needing help themselves after losing a pet. And this book deals with it. It You find out, okay, so here's Shadow, and Shadow's living in this house with two parents and a girl and a boy. And Shadow can do tricks, and Shadow has all kinds of things. And Shadow got Shadow's name because Shadow doesn't like seeing shadows. So when it would be later in the day, you kind of put the drapes down so that Shadow doesn't get bothered by seeing a shadow.
For sure.
And so you do all of this, and then it gets to where Shadow is tired and been around for quite a few years, and till the morning that Shadow passes away.
Yeah.
Well, children oftentimes that's the first thing that they've ever deal with
Hmm.
as far as losing or
Right.
having grief or knowing anything about grief or knowing and not understanding what grief
Hmm.
is and or how to react or they don't know. But that's usually a pet loss is one of the first loss that they'll come up with. And so children need to you have to do it with whether they're little kids or they're teenagers. It's a different way of doing it with each one. And you just have to be able to let them know that you also have the grief, that you feel the loss. Have them talk about memories, fun memories with their pet. Have them draw pictures of their pet. They can put those pictures on the refrigerator. I don't know where you went, Osiris. I don't see you. Um, Children, you can plant a tree or a rose bush or something, and that can be, oh, that's shadows, or that's, whatever the pet's name. They're positive things
Hmm.
that kids, that you can do with your children and become more, very cohesive and just really be together as a family in
Yeah.
pet loss.
I think that's paramount too, because especially for those who actually know the feeling of having that pet family member in your home, that you almost don't deem them as an animal, even though by nature they are animals, but they become a lot more than that. And so in dealing with the loss of it could be quite devastating, especially if that family doesn't have children and they view those their pet family as their actual children. And so it
Hmm.
sounds a lot like when it comes to writing, and this is probably universally agreed upon when it comes to writing, that not only is it like a form of relief for the artist, but it can almost work as a way of helping the reader, depending on the genre, of course, whether it's specifically designed to help them go get through problems, or if it's taking them out of their own reality and putting them into the reality of the story for them to, I don't know, maybe lose themselves, immerse themselves into the story, whatever they're going through during the day. They know that if I read this book, everything is okay. And I think that's like one of the more powerful, potent moments as a writer, specifically as an author in creating books, is to be able to have some sort of relationship between the person, between you as the writer and the audience. And I know like AI and AI's been around, and I think many people forget that the AI has been in existence for a very long time. But I guess because it's there's such a
Yes.
soph- such there's some of this equipment with AI so sophisticated now that it seemingly appears that if you're a writer, you have no shot. But I disagree with that. I think there's a lot more to writing than it just being produced and put out there. And so I think that's the same when it comes to illustrations as well is that to me, I think when it comes to AI and illustrations versus AI and written work is you could you can I guess it's kind of more or less the same, but I think that if we're talking AI for illustrations, because I used AI for some illustrations in my coloring book, and I think that one, it saves a lot of money on budget, so you just kind of have to. I guess it depends on the budget. A lot of my other children's books is hired by illustrators, but as a whole, it's a matter of how do you utilize it to your advantage. And I think that as long as like if the story has some sort of soul in it, or the pictures that's being used have some sort of soul in it, I think it could still get the point across to connect. But I don't think that, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what how if you have or have not, or if you plan to, your ideas of like using some sort of AI as a way to help you, whether elevate your work or use it as a tool to kind of give you ideas. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't use it to, I don't consider it to be, I don't use it to elevate my work. Well, first of all, AI, if I see something written, I can tell if it's AI or not.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I can tell. Okay. Um, Illustrations for me, I don't care if somebody does that or not, but I oftentimes like to mix my illustrations.
Hmm.
And so, which means that I'll take actual pictures that I have of shadow or different squirrels in different poses doing funny things, and I will make memes with them, and I will incorporate those in with the rest of the drawing, of the illustration. And
Yeah.
it works out really good. And so I like to do that. And then, of course, this last book, that's a pig, and he pretty much stays the same way he is. He looks the same way, but he's just in
Yeah.
different positions and different backgrounds and such. And, being up there on the International Space Station, pigs really do fly. They really
That's
can
awesome.
fly.
I actually like that idea too, of putting the pig in space. It's so funny.
At the end of the book, oh, he goes out and he spacewalks. It's funny, and then the rope, the tether breaks loose, so he's like,
Yeah.
and so another astronaut has to go out and save him and everything, and it's so funny. But at the end, this pig Horace was always dreaming of going to outer space, and he would dream about it every night, and it was so funny because the next morning when he came back, or he'd come back and splashed down in the ocean and everything and all of that. Well, that night he went to sleep, and the next morning he woke up and he thought he was trying to figure out if that had all been a dream or
Yeah.
if it had really happened. And he looks down at his hand, his paw, and in his paw is a picture of Earth taken from the International Space Station that he took when he was up at and
Uh-huh.
inside the International Space Station. And so that gives kids, okay, so explain this. Gives them
Hmm.
something to think about.
Oh yeah.
It was
And that's
funny.
what, well, like such an imagination that you have too. And what I love about just mixing up genres. Well, I don't mean mixing up like you mix this genre with this one and you blend it together, but literally writing one genre and then writing another and being able to like cultivate such a an imaginative world that significantly differs from this. Like if you write horror and then you write a brightly colored children's story, the two don't necessarily mix, but it just shows the creative juices of the individual. So let me ask you, I'll ask you just one more question since I gotta roll out here pretty soon. So first, thank you so much for staying on board. It's been good sitting back and just being able to listen to the your wisdom and your experiences and really how you use real life experiences down to even illustrations and how you transcribe that into your stories. It's fascinating. And but so last thing, right? So you've been doing this on this role since he said 2015, 61 books later. I'm sure you're still going to be working on projects. You were a nurse, you had mentioned at one point in time as well, and you raised your children a lot differently than how you grew up as well. At the end of it all, at the end of this journey, right? Not that at the end of your life, but at the end of this journey, where whenever you decide, you know what, I'm done writing, if that ever comes a time. What advice would you give to those who are just getting their start, whether they are in their adolescent phase or teenagers or well into adulthood, and they say, "I just want to get started." What advice would you give them?
I would tell them to just write what they're thinking and write what they're feeling and just keep on writing and don't worry about whether it's in a right paragraph or whatever's going on. Just keep on putting the story down and just don't worry about everything else will come afterwards. But just keep your thought process going and just go with it. I mean, yeah, I wrote memoirs. I've written children's books. I've written a children's book on good touch, bad touch. I've written books on bullies. I've had books, schools have wanted them.
Hmm.
I have, I wrote a trilogy that involved a thriller, love story, um, assassins, Homeland Security, the FBI. It's got all kinds of stuff. No one ever saw that coming from me.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, that's what I do. And that's what people need to do, especially kids, or it doesn't matter how old you are. You can be somebody who is 70 years old and put out your first book. It doesn't matter. Just get those words down. And then the rest will come later because then you're going to be able to start talking to people, building a little bit of a platform, finding out, okay, you need help maybe with editing. You'll be able to get that because
Yeah.
you'll be able to talk to people and get references.
Yes.
Something that will fit within your budget.
Absolutely. That thought, being able to fit within your budget. And I think that is really important to note that you should, not you, Mary, but the person, right? They should have this idea of what am I willing to spend, even when it comes down to advertisements and or just different versions of marketing or where you go, who you connect with, however you choose to do it. There should always be something in mind where it can be as measurable. If you don't necessarily have a target, it could be so difficult for you to find any kind of success, let alone finding even an amount of books that you're trying to whether sell or to give away. And I also think it's important to not be in a I just need to make money, make money, make money, and that is it. I think it would be such a benefit for the author to be okay with giving their books away, especially if for free. Um, Maybe not always, but maybe doing some sort of events or going to schools or doing something to where you have a few extra copies, just hand them away or give them to somebody. I don't know. I think it's a bit. I think it's wholesome, and I also think it you can't really stamp a value, a monetary value on how you can positively impact people's lives. And I think if it always comes down to, I have the perfect book for you, but here it costs this much money, and if that's always the mindset, I think that there can be people can get lost in the reality of how you can really help people. I don't know. Like I know that was my
It's
last
true.
question, but what are your closing thoughts on that?
I think that I have donated books, okay? And I will tell you also, during the main part of the COVID shutdown, I sent boxes of books to Trinidad and Tobago.
Wow.
Brenda Muhammad is one of my friends. She lives in Trinidad, and I met her in person in Miami one year at the awards, and she's a great lady. She's really wonderful, and she actually she took those books, and her and her sister took them to different schools, and all these kids are wearing face masks and they're holding up these hardbound children's books that I sent for free, and that just that goes to my heart. I will say that at one point in time, I was taking. You can go to Pixabay and get free pictures of
Yep.
anything you want, and I used to do that. I used to do that, as in I did used to do that for backgrounds for my books, and then I'd put my book cover on it, and I'd type out what I want and all this stuff. And I've got Photoshop. I got all of that, and I've been doing digital design since 1995, so that's easy for me. But then I thought, why should I try to hunt for something specific when I can tell AI, okay, this is what I want, exactly what I want,
Mm-hmm.
and it can make that, and I can use it as the background for
Mm-hmm.
my book cover to be put on.
Absolutely. Yep.
And and then I start looking around. It's like, oh well, half of what's pick on Pixabay is AI. So it's like, okay, what's the difference? So when you look at the backgrounds that are laid out, like when Angels Fly has fluffy, like as a heaven type background,
Mm-hmm.
and that I asked AI to make me that background, and then I put the book on it, and I put my text and everything on it, and then I add a border to it, and that's it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that because you can get it exactly the way you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You can have gold streets of gold or pearly gates. You can have whatever you want to put that book on. And my
Mm-hmm.
book and that particular book cover, actually the cover is painted, and it is my son. And
Yeah.
I do paint. I paint in real life.
Yeah.
I I I took about every single type of art class you can ever think of.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I can do all of that.
That's wonderful. And there's a mixture of both. Yeah, I definitely think I'm with you as well. Like using AI in a way to help you creatively, I think is such an essential piece, especially Pixabay. I've used Pixabay as well. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've gone there to get to obtain music, instrumentals that I would use for some of my shows. Well, not this current show, but some of my older shows that I've since discontinued. But um, uh, when you do think about it, a lot of the imagery that they use on there is straight up AI, and it's presented in a way that it makes it seem like it's not. That it comes from artists doing their artistry, and me personally, I'm a huge fan of art as a whole. If I had the budget to be able to go out and hire these big time illustrators, which I've hired illustrators in the past through Fiverr, and what I really enjoyed about that process before AI really came on the scene was I loved how it was an inexpensive but high quality. Um, Artists that were on there and working in tangent with them. It was just wonderful, like certain looks. But now AI is so sophisticated with it's even with illustrations that I feel for the illustrators out there because essentially we're being replaced, and that's a lot how we as writers feel too. Is that hey,
It's
this
true.
software that we feel replaced, and but I will say even in that, right, even in the midst of AI illustrations and with writing, I would still say continue because there are people who still want to collaborate with. I'm
Yes,
still working with artists who do it by hand. I also use AI for certain projects. When it comes to illustrations, it just depends on the budget. Mary has over 60 freaking books. That's a lot of money if we're talking illustrations per book. So
there is. There is, but I can do that.
yeah,
So I don't have to pay somebody to do that. So that makes a big difference right
for
there.
sure.
And
Yeah,
I'll
that's
also
true.
tell you for some of my covers, I've taken, they have come straight from, I'm a photographer, and maybe I took something that's really majestic there in Glacier National Park, and I
Hmm.
want that as the background of my book cover.
Hmm.
Well, I took the pic. I took it.
Yep, it's
You
yours.
know, exactly. I took it,
Yep.
and I actually took my first book cover in that trilogy that I told you about with the thriller and the assassins and everything. Um, oh, and the lovely trope of having the Russian actually be the good guy and the American the bad guy. But that's beside the story. The first book in the trilogy, I actually painted that cover.
Oh wow.
And then I wasn't going to paint the next two. I was just going to,
Yeah, but
do
there's
what
a
I did.
common theme. There's a common theme, right, with what you're saying. The painting, the photography. the owning your own your publishing company, right? And housing your own books, ownership seems to be such an important key factor here. And this will actually be the last thing I'll talk about, ownership. Because that's why, for me, this platform and the books, and it's because I house my own as well. 'Cause to me, I think it's significant, and owning your own IPs and being able to just own your own work. How important is it for you, Mary, to have complete ownership of your work?
I learned the hard way that your book can be stolen.
Yeah.
And my third book was stolen. And that's when I realized I have to copyright every single book. And every time that they go out live, like Horace went out live this morning, I copyrighted it in Washington, D.C. I did the paperwork for it because your book can be stolen. And I had a children's book stolen and completely used by another person with the same title. The title isn't copyrighted, but when you're looking at the galley and what's going on, and you get the full context, and then it's like, okay, yeah, yeah, she stole the book. That's bad. But then this happened. I had a book, a children's book, stolen. They took it apart, they reproduced it, then they distributed it, they sold it. They sold more than $7,000 worth of my book before they were caught. They did it to several authors. The ones that they ended up making deposits for over $10,000, all of those are automatically reported to the FBI. And so the FBI in San Diego got involved, and it ended up being a massive ring that my children's book ended up being in part of, and I really don't like that. I don't like that being associated with that. It ended up they they hacked my Facebook. They went into Okay, so I've just been on Facebook in the last week. I finally got it back. Before that, I lost it back in 2018 because they were using Facebook's trademark to promote their book. This book, that was my book, but that they did through their own distribution, the way they
Hmm.
did it. It's crazy, but they're all sitting in jail right now, and I get to press charges here next month, I believe it is. So they're all in San Diego in jail, and the San Diego FBI has it all, and they were just waiting for two people to be extradited from India. Then they would have them all, and they're all being charged together
That's
as a
insane.
collective for grand larceny.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, justice is served on a silver platter. So good on you and learning in that experience. And so I would say,
It's a
like,
learning.
yeah, no, for sure. To those who it's common, but it's not as common as you think. Meaning that not all of your work will get stolen, but you might want to present in a way that just you protect yourself just in case, because you just never know. It's unfortunate what happened to Mary, but at least she's getting compensated. And there's an experience in that. She has over 60 books, and she learned early that copyright protecting my work is far more important than anything else, because if you want to have complete ownership, it's not just as much as you put your name on a piece of paper, you start writing it, boom, you have that copyright. But to have like legal proof showing that no, that I actually own this is what she's inferring. And I would also
Hmm.
agree as well. You want to get that stuff legally copywritten. If you
I
are
do.
doing this, if it's just more of as a hobby, then
Everything is everything. Every single book is copyrighted. I have
yeah,
one for every. I mean, that's a thick file with
yeah,
copyrights. But it's like, and they're still cool when they come in because it's like it's a copyright. It's an actual document.
yeah,
You get, from Washington D.C. and it's really cool.
yeah.
And I don't know. Sometimes I've had copyright come in before my book box of books came in. So that's kind of crazy. But anyways, copywriting is extremely important, and I can't stress that enough.
For sure. I know, agreed. And I think I'm closing on that note right there. So, hey, Mary, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you so much for your generosity as well, and just for all of the help that you provided, not just myself, but even over on the Cozy Book Nook podcast, which you all can catch every Tuesday on X at 12 a.m. No, was it? I'm thinking East Coast Pacific time. It'll be, let me
12
make sure I get it
noon,
right.
12 noon Eastern.
There it is. Okay. I knew I was mixing up something. No, thank you. Other than that, hey, make sure you all check out Mary's books. I'll make sure I'll link her books in the description of this episode. Is there a website or two you want to share?
WhenAngelsFly.net. You go to WhenAngelsFly.net and you'll see tabs for books, but you'll also see I blog books all the time. Every book I read, I blog it, all that. So it
Perfect.
has all the kinds of links that you could ever want. They're all there. They have separate tabs. So WhenAngelsFly.net. Thank you.
WhenAngelsFly.net. Hey, there it is. So you all make sure you check that out. And thank you all again for taking the time out of your day to tune into today's episode. Thank you again, Mary. Hey, you all take care, and I'll catch you
Thanks,
next time.
Cyrus. Thank you.